Welcome to the IGEOS show, where we help grow the passion for an extraordinary workplace. If you're listening to or watching this, we hope to strengthen your passion for a workplace that has the potential not only to have an extraordinary impact on your life, but also on the world. My name is Amit Riker, and my co-hosts are Valerio Pascotto and Timothy Galway. Now to you, Valerio.
Thank you, Amit. What drives our efforts is really a vision and credo to enrich humaneness in the workplace. For that, we interview thought leaders who have been inspired by values of compassion, empathy, and modeling to share their discoveries, challenges, and successes. Really, there is no time like now to change the tide, from hateful divisiveness to seeking similarities, from the myth of the genius to the wisdom of humankind, and from the fears of the primitive brain to the wonder of generosity and warmth.
To support you in this work of creating extraordinary workplaces, we would like to offer you a free worksheet you can download on the 5 disciplines of a high-performance team. Just go to IGEOS.net to download the sheet and learn more about us. And now, on to our guest for today. Hello, everyone. Welcome, conscious leaders and conscious teams. I am very excited today to have an amazing guest with us. Bonnie St. John is joining us. And those of you who may not know who she is, I want to introduce Bonnie. So Bonnie, despite having her right leg amputated at age 5, she became the first African-American ever to win medals in Winter Olympic competition, taking home a silver and 2 bronze medals at the 1984 Winter Paralympics in Innsbruck, Austria. From there, she went on to graduate magna cum laude from Harvard University and won the Rhodes Scholarship to Oxford. Upon her return to the United States, she was appointed by President Clinton as a director of human capital issues on the White House National Economic Council. Along with her and her team at Blue Circle Leadership, Bonnie brings out the best in others as a highly sought after keynote speaker and leadership development expert for a variety of corporations and associations worldwide. So she is a celebrated author of 6 books, her latest book being Micro-Resilience, which she co-authored with Alan Hines. And just to put the cherry on top, NBC News calls Bonnie as one of the 5 most inspiring women in America. So Bonnie, what a delight and what an honor to have the chance to speak with you today.
Thank you so much. I love seeing your book with all the stickies and Post-its in it.
Yeah, I went to town. There's so much good stuff in it, and I was delighted and looking forward to getting into this. But please tell us. I mean, there's so much we have a chance to talk about today. But I was grateful to be able to meet you at the Work Human Conference and get to connect and discover that you were exposed to Timothy Galway's work in the inner game. Could you share with us how you first got introduced to that in your journey and your influence in your skiing world?
So I actually wrote about Tim Galway in my first book that I got published. I've had like 7 books, but I said early on in my ski career, a friend and coach gave me a copy of The Inner Game of Tennis by Tim Galway. Other coaches can tell you what you're supposed to be doing with your feet or hands, but Galway describes better than anyone else what's supposed to be going on in your head while you're doing sports. And it just made a big difference for me early on when I was training. And as you said, I went on and competed in the 1984 Paralympics and won 2 bronze and a silver. But it was, crazy that I should end up being a ski racer. I grew up in San Diego where there's no snow. And as you said, I'm the first African-American to win medals in Winter Olympics, so I didn't have a lot of role models. Had my leg amputated. I was on the playground. I used to read books when girls were doing hopscotch or double dutch, and nobody would have picked me on a team. I was never going to be on a high school swim team or track team. So being able to think of myself as an athlete and train to be an athlete was such alien territory. And Tim Galway's work made a big difference for me because it talked about how to really use your mind to be a better athlete. And I just love his work.
When did you, if you could recount, was there a pivotal moment that shifted for you when you went from the girl sitting on the side to, oh my gosh, I have nothing to hold me back except myself?
Well, just in terms of skiing, people say, how does a one-legged Black girl from San Diego decide to become a ski racer? And by the way, my family did not have a lot of money. And so a lot of times people say, wow, it's so hard to ski on one leg. I'm like, it's really hard to ski with no money. But one of the things that got me into skiing was a friend of mine in high school, Barbara Warmath, invited me to go skiing with her family. And I think that's so amazing when I look back on it, because she's white, I'm Black. I grew up in National City in San Diego, which is not what you see in the postcards. In National City, you drive to the water, there's no beach. It's manufacturing, it's shipyards, it's Navy. And in National City, you have gangs and violence. But I was bused all the way across town to go to La Jolla, which most people, does look like the postcards. And that's where Barbara was from. So just to put it in perspective, Barbara turned her one-legged Black friend from the wrong side of the tracks and said, let's go skiing. And, we talk a lot about diversity and the power and competitiveness of diversity. And I was thinking about this years later. If I wasn't on the US team that year, we wouldn't have had as many medals. So the people behind me in the rankings were not American. And so literally Barbara reaching out and saying, hey, do something totally different, made the US more competitive. And so I think it's a great story about the power of diversity. And Barbara's just an amazing human being. She had so much faith in me that I could do it.
Oh, that's fantastic. Just the power of relationships and the community. Exactly. to bring you along, to help you see something that you might not have seen for yourself.
Exactly. And to affirm somebody's capability, as opposed to her looking at me and thinking, oh, she can't do it,
Absolutely. So let's go on this little journey here. So touching upon, again, maybe expanding a little bit with getting into the inner game and skiing, basically, like how did that influence you sort of from your skiing to maybe your journey and path to what the amazing work that you're doing today?
I think, really getting conscious of how you achieve excellence, and that you do it by carving out habits and repetition, and being able to find the best inside yourself, which it's wonderful to have confidence about being able to find that. Am I answering your question?
Indeed. I mean, the journey evolves however it does for you. So I guess, were there ways that you saw as you got more into your skiing practice, I would imagine the more you started to excel at that, the more it gave you confidence that there are other domains that you can really excel in?
Absolutely. And I think it's so important, especially for people with disabilities, to be able to get that confidence that I can be a champion. It may not look like the way you're going to be a champion or the way the other girls did sports on the playground when I was growing up, but I can be a champion in my own way. And certainly as a teenager, when I started training and skiing, I found other people with disabilities, and I did sports with other people with disabilities. And that was such a tremendous opportunity to find my strength and to find my greatness and confidence, and to learn to have a sense of humor about my disability. When you go skiing, everybody drops their legs or arms or crutches or whatever at the bottom of the lift. And so when you go out with a bunch of people with disabilities, there's this pile, at the bottom, and it's like everybody's been healed and they're gone, And one time, so I'm brown, and so my leg is brown, and so I left my leg by the chairlift. Actually, this other guy left his leg, and he was white, and so some of us went, oh, let's hide his leg, put my leg there, and a bottle of suntan cream. Just this goofy stuff, and learning to laugh too, and not to take it so seriously, I think is one of the great ways of pushing past obstacles, right? So it meant a lot to me. Actually, it's interesting from that perspective too. I was sponsored by the National Brotherhood of Skiing. So not only did I join this big organization of disabled skiers, but I also became a part of this large Black ski organization. And so that was a whole identity thing for me as well. Because if you read in the newspapers and the media about what it means to be Black, you're going to see one picture. But if you join the National Brotherhood of Skiers, you're going to see a very different picture. You're going to see Black people who are successful, who don't fit stereotypes, who are educated, who have poise, and totally different world. And so that piece of my identity. So skiing affirmed my identity as a person with a disability, but also my identity as a Black person, to say you can be whoever you want to be.
Wonderful, beautiful. What I heard threads within there is reminds me very much of one of the principles out of Inner Game, where Tim talks about your performance is equal to your potential minus your interference. And it sounds like through your experience to this community, you just like started stripping away the interference that could be holding you back.
That's so great. It's funny. I was reading these books so long ago. I actually went back on my shelf and found my old copies. You can see what they used to look like. I don't know what the modern copies probably look different, right? But yeah, there's probably so many ways that this impacted me that I don't even remember, is that people say, wow, how do you do those things and have confidence without interference? And you're right. I learned through skiing to say, hey, just try it and let go of a lot of the interference and trust your inner greatness.
Wonderful. Beautiful. Where I'd like to go from here, there's so many beautiful ways where you could go. Maybe could you tell us a little bit about sort of your journey, your arc of these other books that you've written, and sort of how it ultimately led you to writing your most recent book, Micro Resilience?
Thank you. So I was a ski racer, and then I had taken time off Harvard University to go to the Olympics. I went back and finished. Won the Rhodes Scholarship, went to England and studied there. Met my husband, who was a New Zealander, and got married. Went back to the US and worked with IBM. That's right. So I worked with IBM in sales, and then went to the White House in the Clinton administration. Now, I loved working for IBM in sales because I got a great education about computers and technology and the future of technology, and a lot of confidence in that area too, as well as in sales. And I got gold-plated training in sales at IBM. And so later, when I started my own business, of course, that made a huge difference. If you're in your own business, you're always in sales, right? And so that background in technology and in sales was just profound for me. But then I went to work in the White House in the Clinton administration on the National Economic Council, which I guess is a good background in business as well, and the economy and world politics and all of those things. And then went from there to start my own business. And I had my daughter right around then too. So I was doing a lot of speaking. And while my daughter was young, I homeschooled her for many years and took her with me traveling and speaking. And so I always interviewed the groups that I was speaking for. So I was always learning. I didn't want to just go and, some athletes just go and tell their story. I skied, I won, and I really didn't want to do that. I learned a lot as I went. I learned about industries. I learned about what makes them competitive, what their competitive challenges are, and being able to tie my story to that. So I learned a lot in the years when I was homeschooling my daughter, flying around and doing a lot of speaking. And then from there, developed more of a consulting business and being able to work with companies. What are your challenges right now? How can I help with that? Making a difference that way. And along the way, I was writing different books. So I wrote Live Your Joy, which is how to stay positive despite all the obstacles that we face. Some people say to me, Bonnie, you've had so many challenges. You should have been a mass murderer. So having my leg cut off, I was abused for many years. By my stepfather, and we didn't have a lot of money, so we had a lot of challenges. So Live Your Joy is really about how do you stay positive no matter what? How do you build the muscles of positivity, which is so important for people and their teams. I wrote another book, How Great Women Lead, where we, my daughter and I, so my daughter was a teenager at this point, and we interviewed Hillary Clinton, Condoleezza Rice, the president of Liberia, an orchestra conductor, a fighter pilot, Sheryl Sandberg, before everybody else knew Sheryl Sandberg, we interviewed her. And just it was a mother-daughter journey to look at the future of women's leadership. Is, who should our daughters be looking up to? Who are the role models for women leaders? That was a phenomenal book too. I also wrote a book called How Strong Women Pray, which it dealt with some of the abuse I faced and finding that inner strength to be able to overcome those obstacles. So I almost think of how Strong Women Pray is sort of about dealing with the past. Live Your Joy is very much about the present. How do I stay in the present? How do I be positive in the present? And How Great Women Lead is about the future of women's leadership. And all that comes to micro-resilience. And so the most recent book, which is maybe the culmination of everything else I've written, is people say, how can I be more resilient? How can my kids be more resilient in today's crazy world? How can my team at work, with so much disruption in every industry, how can we get good at being resilient? And so this is really a practical book with research-based tools that help people step by step to become more resilient, to consciously and intentionally become more resilient, and to enable your team to be more resilient and really create a culture of resilience and a language. How do we talk to each other about being resilient? And what I've learned is it's really a redefinition of what high performance looks like. That I certainly grew up in the drive yourself until you drop culture. Just push yourself. And then when you fall over, you go, see, I'm so tough. I pushed myself till I fell over. And in today's world, we are so busy. We have so much thrown at us. It's almost drive yourself until you drop isn't enough. Sorry, we need more than that. And so micro-resilience is about how do we sustain the kind of crazy level of what we do. If you're really driving and pushing yourself and you need more, micro-resilience is about being able to do more, because we're consciously and intentionally using evidence-based ways to rejuvenate ourselves, to recover along the way, not waiting until we drop, but recovering along the way. And that's much more sustainable, and it's a higher level of performance.
Beautiful. As I was getting into it, I just love the simple examples, yet powerful. And so for those of folks who may not have gotten a chance to get the book yet, could you just overview the 5 frameworks that outline the book?
Well, if I may, before that, it's on the tennis theme. So we have the inner theme of tennis. One of the pivotal pieces of research that sent us in a particular direction on this was Jim Lair looking at certain tennis players and why certain tennis players win more consistently than anyone else. So like if you're looking at the US Open, everybody's world class, but the reporters are only talking about a handful of names because they always win. And he wanted to understand what puts you in that category. So somebody might, serve 90 miles an hour or run faster. People have different skills, but is there some consistent factor that puts you in the winningest category? That's what he wanted to know. And he was looking at videos of all these tennis players, and he said he couldn't find a common factor. I got to talk to him about this recently too, and he said, I couldn't find anything common until I started looking at what they did between the points. And he said, and a pattern immediately jumped out. He told me though, but people thought I was crazy. He said, because I was looking at video of tennis players not playing tennis to understand how they won. And what he said was they had ways of quickly recovering their energy between the volleys. And he started putting heart rate monitors on them and talking about what was going on in their head. And he found out there was all these behaviors that he saw at the top 10, but as you went down the rankings, you saw less and less of those between the points recoveries. And when you got to the bottom, none. And it's, it's amazing. If you and I are playing tennis and you're recovering your focus, drive, and energy between every volley, and I'm not, it doesn't matter if we started with the same skills. By the end, you're going to be walking all over me. So in the world of tennis, they realized that they could teach those skills. And so now it's common. Like if you look up Federer's camp, training tennis camp, it says the 16-second cure, that they teach what you do between the volleys. And it's been applied to golf and other areas. But what we did in micro-resilience was really say, how can we make that same concept work for the rest of us in the middle of a 12-hour day? You know, how can we have between the points recoveries, and what does it look like? And so we scoured physiology and neuroscience and positive psychology to find evidence-based ways to recover your energy between the points. And it's different than what most people think of as resilience, because most people think of eating right or getting enough sleep, things you have to do over and over again as a habit to get the benefit. But everything in micro resilience is about something you do today and it helps you today. And so, which is fun. I know we all love things that have immediate gratification. So that was the lens we went into resilience with, was how can we find, and so the 5 frameworks you asked me to talk about are, we curated all of our research into those 5 areas of, these are the hacks that help you recover your energy faster.
Beautiful. Could you speak a little bit more about, you mentioned about the micro supports the macro. So what's that about?
So we defined the term micro resilience. We coined the term micro resilience to talk about these things that have immediate benefit. And macro is what we called the things you have to do over and over again. You have to have a habit. You don't just exercise once and say, oh, I'm done, that's all I need to do. You know, you have to do it as a habit to get the benefits. Exercise is a great way to highlight the difference between the two also, because you know, you work out 3 times a week, 4 times a week, you get sweaty, you get strong, you know, and you say, that's what makes me healthy. But from a micro resilience perspective, exercise is a different function. We found research that showed exercise can make you smarter for hours afterwards. So in the old paradigm, you would say, you know, I exercised yesterday, I'll exercise tomorrow, but today I have a really big meeting, I have to give a speech, or I have to finish this proposal, so I'm just going to focus on what I'm doing. I don't need to do that, I'm healthy. But from a micro resilience perspective, you say, wow, if I just exercise a little bit in before I start work on this, I'm going to give a better speech, I'm going to write a better proposal, I'm going to get it done faster, because the studies show that after a small amount of exercise, and it's little as 10 minutes of walking, one study is 20 minutes of dancing, you are able to generate more innovative ideas, make more connections between dispersed ideas, access your memory better. And so you get micro resilience says, I can't afford not to exercise today. And it doesn't have to look like this big sweaty thing that you do for your health. So micro resilience exercise can look different than macro resilience exercise.
Beautiful. I loved reading that portion in the book. And just yesterday, I've been going through some physical therapy, and I was like, okay, I need to get back into doing my exercises and working up a sweat. And yesterday I was like, all right, I'm going to do it. And sure enough, the moment I was done with my exercise, I was like, holy moly, like all these ideas came in. I was like, I got to write these down. And time again, there have been so many other instances where I'm working out with my personal trainer, and as I'm taking a shower, like all these ideas are flooding through my brain. And so I loved how you highlighted that, where something you don't, it feels so counterintuitive. I don't have time to do this. But when you put it in that framework, you're absolutely right.
It's a different payoff. And for us, for me, and Alan Haynes, my co-author, is also my husband, for us, it really changed our behavior. I don't know if you ever see that sometimes when I have a really intense day, I'm in a hotel somewhere, and I say, I don't have time to go down to the hotel gym and do that whole routine, but I'm going to sit in my room and I'm going to do push-ups, I'm going to do sit-ups, I'm going to do some jumping jacks, just enough to get myself going. And I know that's going to kick off a better day. And I wouldn't have done that before I saw the research. Did it have that effect on you too?
Oh, absolutely. I think for me, it was bringing the consciousness is like, oh yeah, that's an experience I've had before. And reading in the book is like, it solidified it. And I was just reflecting on this earlier today. It just cracks me up how easy it is that we forget the benefits of like a good sweat, a good exercise. And I mean, it's so cliche, right? You hear it every day, but how often are we actually practicing it? So absolutely, it's really
you make a great point too, is that for many people, some of these hacks are so simple. There's like 21 different hacks in the book, and some of them are simple, and you say, oh yeah, this really tracks with what I know and my experience, but you've given me a framework, and so you can apply it more intentionally and with more precision to use it for what you want, as opposed to just, oh, I exercised it, oh, I got an idea, yeah, I'm lucky, you know. But you can actually a target saying, I'm going to do exercise before I need to write this proposal. And some of the research on this came out. Wendy Suzuki, who's a neuroscientist at NYU, she said she had been a horrible exerciser. She's a classic nerd, never exercised. And then she really turned over a new leaf after she got tenure, and she started exercising intensely, and she noticed a sharp difference. She's like, I write my grants faster. I write better grants. And so she said, I'm a neuroscientist. I need to look into this. And so being able to understand it makes you smarter. You know, you can use it more effectively. You can be more surgical in how you practice it. And there's so many other ideas in the book that are like that too, is it may track with something you kind of naturally do, but you can use it more effectively. And as a leader, you can be conscious, and you can get your team speaking the same language, and being, again, that between the points thing about tennis, it's about being intentional. So much is thrown at us. The pace of life keeps accelerating. I can't slow down life, but if we can speed up recovery, you can be more effective. And so it's that intentionality. It's that being conscious.
Absolutely. So what is one way, or something you would help leaders out with in helping them, instill the micro habits for themselves, and then B, to cultivate it within their teams?
Well, here's one example too, is I really think in today's culture, focus is under assault, right? Is that we have so much coming at us, text and people walking into your office and phone calls and emails, and there's so much going on. And I heard a speaker, I was giving a TED talk last week, and I heard another speaker at the TED conference who was talking about, companies are making billions of dollars by fighting for your attention, for fighting for slices of your attention. They're making tons of money by doing that. And so literally our focus is under assault. And so we talk about creating zones. One of the hacks in the book is creating zones. And I think of it as like an island in the stream of communication. There's so much communication coming at you, but you can carve out islands. And that's so important because there's a lot of research that multitasking really degrades our ability to think. When you're getting interrupted while you're doing something, studies show it's like losing 10 to 15 points off your IQ, or like working when you haven't slept all night, and you lose accuracy, quality, and innovation. So, it's funny, it's fine to fold laundry in front of TV, but when you're trying to do something important, you don't want to do multitasking unless you want to lose innovation, quality, and accuracy. So creating zones is a way to kind of push back against this culture that we're in that thinks it's okay to be interrupting everybody all the time. So for the leader's perspective, and that's the question you asked, is it's important to communicate about communicating. And so you can carve out these zones, but they only work if you're talking to each other about, I need to do a zone, and this is how I'm going to do it, and this is why I'm doing it, because I want higher performance, and here are the conditions under which you should interrupt me, but otherwise don't interrupt me. And so when you're communicating about that, everybody can do better. And so we can start to regain, as teams, as people that work together, to say, how are we going to regain more of that focus and not just let it ebb away because that's the default position. And here's this really simple way to think of it as a leader too, is have a conversation with your team and say, you know what, we're all interrupting each other. This is the norm nowadays. What are one or two things we could do differently that would allow everybody to get what they need, get the information they need, get the answers to the questions they need, but not be constantly interrupting each other? Just having that conversation to say, how could we change a couple of norms in our behavior and all of us be able to focus more? And then you're smarter.
That's beautiful. That's such a beautiful segue, because that very notion by itself may seem very inconsequential, like, oh, so what if I interrupted, but when added up, it just completely degrades the potential that the team has. And so one of the things that Tim and Valerio created through their team training is one of the critical variables is how much time is being spent in between people talking. Just paying attention, having that awareness of, okay, Bonnie just spoke, and then instantly I'm saying something, or before she says her last word, I'm chiming in my point of view. And so I love that. I love that. I want to touch upon one of the particular chapters about reframing your attitude. And so the power of reframing in so much of the literature is such a powerful tool, and definitely there's a reframe tool used in the inner game and in the team training. So tell us about sort of the power that reframing your attitude has in doing the work that we're here to do.
Well, one piece of research that made that really important for me was understanding that we as human beings go negative so much more often and intensely and quicker than we go positive. We are designed to go negative, which is kind of liberating, right? Is to say, it's not just me or you or my team members. It's what we're designed to do as humans. To survive, we had to, go, and, have that fight or flight response. And our physiology triggers a whole host of hormones, and, your blood pressure goes up, your vision narrows, all these things happen to make you on guard for something bad that's going to happen. And that was useful when we were in a primitive world where you had to fight, eat or be eaten. But in an office, we still get triggered. The same physiological process happens. And so we have these strong negative reactions to things in a modern day world where we really need to be thinking. And that fight or flight reaction actually shuts down your advanced thinking. So that negative reaction, part of what's in the book, the reset framework, is about how to be more aware of that process and to mitigate it and slow it down and reverse it. So going less negative is one of the things we teach tools for. But the reframe is about strengthening your reaction to the positive. So if primitive man saw berries on a tree, we don't go berries, we're not designed to have that really strong reaction to positive. But in the modern world, being able to pull to the positive has so many benefits, is that we're able to accept feedback better. We're able to adapt to change better. We're able to deal with actually diverse people better. You're able to deal with different kinds of people better when you're in that positive framework. There's so many benefits. And the work out of University of Michigan with Kim Cameron, he has actually done a lot of work in measuring organizational benefits and profitability associated with being more positive. And companies that are like a standard deviation better than their industry in performance are often associated with more positive words, more positive attitudes. So there's a lot of benefits to it, but it doesn't come naturally. So what we do in the reframe framework is to give people tools for themselves and their teams to strengthen those muscles and to be able to pull themselves into the positive. So I just said I did a TED Talk, and what we did was we did it on the first aid kit for your attitude. So that's one of the tools, is being able to create a first aid kit for your attitude. We know you have first aid kits because you might get a cut or a bruise or a burn, but why not have a first aid kit? Because your mental attitude can get a cut or a bruise or a burn. So being able to put some things together that can help turn around your attitude can make a difference. And then as a team, being able to say, hey, we can all have a first aid kit for our attitude. One of the things that communicates is that you're responsible for your attitude. You have the capacity to turn it around. And so as a leader, you can set that expectation. And then also people can help each other. I sometimes when I'm having a bad day, I'm not thinking, oh, let me get my first aid kit, but you can say to somebody else, oh, you look like you're having a tough day here, put this in your first aid kit, or this will help cheer you up. So having that as a team is a really powerful idea too.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. One of the ending chapter is getting into renewing spirit. I love the simple formula where you talk about you describe purpose as purpose equals values plus goals. So, and I'd like to tell us a little bit more about that. And I'm even curious of how it's maybe evolved for you back when you were a skier. You had a very different set of goals with how that fit under your purpose to the work that you're doing today. So,
well, as a skier, there was one point where I was living in a ski area and I didn't have a car. Like I said, I didn't have any money and I needed to have a job. And I got a job in a diner serving breakfast and lunch. So you start at that 6 o'clock shift, you're slinging eggs and hash for construction workers and truckers, in a mountain town somewhere and, working through lunch. But I didn't have a car, so I would have to get up at 5 a.m, walk a mile to get to this restaurant, be on my foot, because I only have one foot, for 8 hours, and then walk back. And by the second or third day, I think I was staggering in, and the diner owner was like, I could pick you up on the way to work. And, why would somebody try that hard? Why would somebody push themselves so hard to serve eggs? And of course, I wasn't just serving eggs. I had a sense of purpose. I was on my way to the Olympics, and I was going to do whatever it took. And for a one-legged person to be walking a mile each way to work and working for 8 hours on my feet was really hard. I mean, literally, I got blisters on my stump, and it was really hard. But when we have a sense of purpose, we can overcome so many things, and we can push ourselves. Hopefully not everybody's pushing themselves that hard, but it's so powerful. And with micro resilience, again, the lens that we had was day by day, hour by hour resilience. And so I think the fascinating thing that we do with purpose is not just to help you clarify your purpose. And there's some exercises in there that help you clarify your purpose. But the micro part is, how does that help me in the middle of the day? At 3:00 in the afternoon, when I'm exhausted and I've had a crazy day, and my customers have been yelling at me, how does purpose help me with that? How do I refuel? How can I use purpose like a gas tank, where I pull in the pump and get fuel out of it? And so for me, that's the micro resilience part. And one example of that is Touchstone. Is Sylvia Burwell Matthews, one of my friends from college. She was working at the Gates Foundation, and you think, Gates Foundation, you get billions of dollars to solve the world's problems. You must skip into work every day, with a sense of purpose. But the reality is, there's a lot of red tape. Imagine you're trying to solve a health crisis that spans across 6 countries in Africa. You're dealing with dictators who hate each other. You're dealing with warlords who won't let things get delivered. You're dealing with pharmaceutical companies that want a lot of money, and you got all these problems. And so you start to make compromises. Yeah, I have a sense of purpose, but maybe I have to give up this. Maybe I have to, sop this person's ego and, help this narcissist. It gets crazy. So one of the things she did was she put a picture of a 10-year-old girl from Africa on the wall in their conference room. And she told her team, she's the boss. And so when you're in the middle of that discussion of, well, do we just solve 20% of the problem for 80% of the people, or do we solve 80% of the problem but for only 20% of the people? And this is life and death, right? You're going to choose whether some people live or die by the kinds of decisions you're making in that conference room. And she would say, how would you explain that to the boss? And it's a touchstone. It's a way to pull everybody back to their values. You're getting caught up in egos and money and all these other things. Can you pull yourself back to your values in a moment? And so that's just one example. There's several different examples in the book of how do you put more purpose and meaning into your schedule? How do you help your team pull back to more purpose, values, and meaning wrapped up in their goals? And that's power. That adds energy, power, and helps you get over obstacles.
Wow. I wish we had another hour just to keep diving into this, because I'm really enjoying this, and this is fantastic. But I know we're coming close to the end of our time here. So maybe just ending with a couple of things. What lasting words of wisdom would you like to share from your work to be able to share with conscious leaders, conscious teams, of how to be doing really meaningful work in the world?
Well, I'm really excited about the micro-resilience work, and we're taking it this year to Japan, and we're training trainers in Thailand. We've just started certifying our first trainers for micro-resilience, and we're going to Thailand, we're going to Brazil, we're going to Dubai this year, and just incredible opportunities. This is such a worldwide problem that people are exhausted, depleted by technology, and the exchange keeps accelerating, and having tools to push back on the pressure that we're under. And we see people saying, this gives me hope, that I felt like I just, the pace of modern life is just like, well, that's what it is. But like we just the example of focus, our focus is under assault. We're giving you tools to push back so that you can think and you can breathe and you can feel purpose. And so people get so excited about this. And in the book, one of the things we did was take 30 real people, give them the training, and just follow them. So before we wrote the book, we'd been doing this for years in corporations and seeing how teams behave. And, you do your follow-up surveys and what are the benefits. But for the book, we just followed real people, individuals. And we got to see not only at work, but in their personal lives. And it was funny because a number of people started dating. There was this one jet set woman, and her 360 leadership scores got better, but then she's also started dating. There was a doctor, and his work life got better. He stopped falling behind on his charts. He was able to get things done more at work, and that's a big problem for doctors, is falling behind on your charts. But then he started dating too. Somebody said, well, I'm married. I better not do micro-resilience. But the point was that you had energy left at the end of the day, and you were the kind of person who could engage and, be emotionally connected to somebody else instead of being squashed by life. So even if you're married, having that space to be dating your spouse, some people aren't dating, they're just so exhausted when they come home, there's nothing left. So what is so wonderful about this work with micro-resilience is not only does it make you more effective at work, but it makes you a better person for your family, for yourself, for your community, because you have more energy, focus, and drive. It sounds so simple, but it's what we see it doing for people is just amazing. And I just love this work.
Bonnie, wow. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for taking the time to share with us your message and the work you're doing. Where can people find out more about you, about Blue Circle Leadership, and how they could find out more?
Well, bluecircleinstitute.com tells you about our company, and you can look at some of the different things we're doing, and you can click on the micro-resilience program and find out more about that as well. Yeah, there's some videos on the site that if you want to share like a 1 or 2 minute video about the Joy Kit, the first aid kit, or the difference between macro and micro, there's some videos there, and I think it's a great way to share it with your team to get that shared vocabulary.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Bonnie. It's been such a pleasure having you today. And so thank you everyone who's watching, Conscious Leaders, Conscious Teams. And Bonnie, thank you for taking the time. Any last words you'd like to share?
Oh, it's just been wonderful talking with you about micro-resilience and what it means for people's lives and how much difference it makes. Thank you for sharing this. Thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank you so much, Bonnie. It's been a pleasure, and look forward to keeping in touch. Take care, everybody. We'll talk soon. Thank you for joining us today. We have many more exciting thought leaders to come on this show. If you enjoyed this interview, please click the like button and also subscribe so that you can stay tuned to learn from other powerful thought leaders in future shows. We would also appreciate your comments and feedback on the show, as well as who else you would like to hear from. And don't forget to visit our site, IGEOS.net, to download the free worksheet on the 5 disciplines of a high-performance team. See you next time.